Welcome to the Union Weekly Insider. I'm Andrew Lindy. This is the official podcast for the Union Weekly out of Cal State Long Beach. I'm going to take you behind the scenes and show you what it takes to put together a weekly student publication. This episode, we'll be meeting two people who held the same position, one after the other. ASI Press Secretary. Carrie Comfort was Press Secretary last year and is now a staff writer for the Union Weekly. Emily Ayers was a staff writer last year and is the press secretary this year. But first, we'll find out more about Maddie Gallegos and Amanda Dominguez-Chio, who are the co-editors of the Culture page. One of the three pages that currently has co-editors, Culture, is run by Maddie and Amanda.
I'm Maddie, one of the Culture editors.
I'm Amanda, I'm the other Culture editor.
Maddie and Amanda both started at the Union Weekly as page editors for pages that no longer exist.
Well, I started out as a journalism major, and I knew that I wanted to write for a magazine, and I knew I wanted to work for a fashion magazine, and so I saw that they had an opening for the arts page, and I was like, well, that's perfect. So I applied, and here I am today. And then they eliminated the arts, and as they always do, because who the fuck cares about arts anymore? So now we're Culture.
I started writing as a contributor because a friend of mine worked here, and then I really liked writing for the Union Weekly, and then I found out that they were hiring, so then I applied and I got in. But I was a literature editor, and then same thing. They eliminated literature, and then they just put literature and arts and created Culture.
Now we are one. Woo.
Their combined page, the Culture page, allows for them to accept articles on a wide variety of topics.
I think it's more diverse than any of the other pages because I feel like every other page kind of has more so like specific things that they have, but Culture there's kind of more broad as to what we'll accept.
Yeah, we have like a lot of cultural events we like to take in, lots of plays, because I feel like with the play it's hard to put that in entertainment, because I don't know, when you watch a play there's lots of stuff about like costumes and then like certain characters, so yeah, I don't know, I just feel like that fits better in culture than it would in entertainment.
Yeah, we definitely kind of embody everything that is kind of beautiful and artistic in the world.
They find it best to collaborate on their page at the same time.
We mostly do everything together.
Yeah.
If we can't do everything together, then we'll just be like, oh, well, I can do this part, can you do this part? Or if someone does something this time, the other person will do that thing next time. Like, we're very give and take, and we have very good communication, so we're able to work really, really well together. So it actually wasn't like that big of a deal at all, because we're great.
Before
writing for the Union Weekly, they also both wrote for online publications.
I used to write for this online magazine called The Artifice, and it sort of resembled like a scholarly article, but for, I guess, anyone who liked to write, because there's a lot of theory going on in the articles.
I was writing for a blog for a little bit that I had collaborated with another journalism student that was about fashion, but it kind of fell through because I sucked at keeping up with writing it, and I was pretty much like the only writer, which sucked, but yeah.
Maddie and Amanda plan to stay on at the Union Weekly until they graduate. Students working close together form friendships that sometimes turn into more than friendships. Earlier this semester, I spoke on the podcast with Editor-in-Chief Alex and Social Media Manager Alexis about how they both joined the Union Weekly while in a relationship with each other. I wanted to expand more on that and see if they've had any issues sorting between their work life and love life. Did you have any concerns of working together while being in a relationship?
I didn't.
I mean, at first, no, but then this morning...
What happened this morning?
We were yelling at each other this morning. We're not yelling, but we were just like, oh yeah, issue versus medium. And then you got offended because I was just like, I didn't like the medium picture because it was just a mountain. And it didn't make sense with the featured header. And then you got mad and you're like, no, you don't want it. And then you were like getting all mad and trying to change the picture. And you're like, no, push issue. And I'm just like, but we both agreed no to issue. But okay. It was a slip. Like, we have slips like that a lot.
But I wouldn't even call that a slip. And I didn't even think it was too bad of a disagreement. Obviously, that's going to happen. But where am I going with this? We're able to tell each other what needs to get done, and we're able to say, okay, this is what needs to get done. And when disagreements happen, it's because maybe we have different priorities on what needs to get done and what and how things should be done. But eventually, we're able to, compromise and agree. Okay, like this is what absolutely needs to get done, and then we just go from there and just going down the list and hitting everything so that our work is complete and we can just go home and enjoy each other's company.
But just as important as not bringing work into their relationship is not bringing public displays of affection into the office.
I mean, we don't kiss or do any of that. I mean, anything beyond kissing would be completely inappropriate and we'd get fired. But I mean, there's times where like we'll be watching videos and we'll hold hands and we'll just like lean on each other.
Civilians.
Like civilians. But nah, I mean, it's just like normal stuff. Like you wouldn't go down the street just like grabbing each other and, making out like high schoolers and shit. So we're courteous. We don't want to make people awkward.
Couples in student media aren't uncommon. There's also a couple who works at College Beat.
College Beat, I know there's one, but they're super professional about it too. Like, it's to the point where I forget that they're a couple sometimes.
Oh yeah, they work together on the same show.
Yeah.
They work on Long Beach Sketch together. And they're super cute in their professionalism because it's like you see them working together and you see them getting excited over their work, and it's just cool to see like a couple like share the same goals in life and professionally, and seeing them work towards achieving those goals, and that's awesome.
I'll have to see if any other office couples want to go on the record. Earlier in the semester, I interviewed one of the staff writers for the Union Weekly. The other staff writer is Carrie Comfort. A senior English major with a journalism minor. She was also the ASI Press Secretary last year. She ran into some trouble, though, when she took on too many responsibilities.
It's actually a really funny conversation I ended up having to have with a couple different people, because last year I was the ASI Press Secretary, so it's like on the executive cabinet or whatever for the president, and I was also the president of a political organization on campus, Young Americans for Liberty, and I was writing for the union independently of being press secretary, and the manager of the student government offices was kind of like, there might be like multiple conflicts of interest here, so you can't like directly work like as a staff writer, as an editor for Union Weekly and be press secretary. So yeah, I was for a bit. I like wrote articles still, but they were all as in like in the capacity of press secretary, not as a Union Weekly writer.
Carrie set the standard of contributing for the Union Weekly during her time as press secretary.
Well, okay, so the position itself is fairly new. I think before me there was only either one or two press secretaries, so it was kind of like still sort of being formed as a position. But the people before me had written weekly articles for the union, so it wasn't like you need to do this, but it's kind of like this is a good place to start for your position. Was sort of the two responsibilities was, writing union articles and press releases for anybody that had an event and we wanted, larger media coverage than on campus. So I guess it wasn't mandatory, but it was kind of like, I think the best place to start for that position. So I didn't always write consistently every week, but more or less every week I did.
It was under the influence of former editor-in-chief Katie Cortez that Carrie started submitting her poems to the now-defunct literature page of the Union Weekly.
So January 2014, because it was my first year here, I think it was Katie Cortez actually at that point, who was the editor from last year, and she basically was like, you should just send something in if you really want to write. I think at that time I was more like, I want to write poetry was like what I was interested in, just from an English major standpoint. I really liked poetry, so I was like, I'll submit some stuff, and I ended up coming to some of the meetings, the general meetings or whatever, and I guess submitted various things, and eventually I started actually writing for the union because Katie asked me, she wanted me to come on as an editor, and I was like, I don't have enough time, like, I would love to, but there's no way, so I just stayed on as contributing writer, and this is my first year as a staff writer, so yeah, just kind of evolved. So I guess Katie Cortez and liking poetry.
Katie also pursued Carrie to continue as a staff writer once her tenure as press secretary ended.
Like, I'd wanted to be a staff writer since my freshman year, I just didn't have the time, so when, last semester, Katie Cortez was like, you have to, like, it's your senior year, like, you need to at least come on as a staff writer if you really want to, and I, like, ended up quitting several other things that I didn't value as highly as, like, being a writer, which is what I want my future to be, so I was like, it would make sense, wouldn't it, to be a staff writer, and, yeah, I guess she connected me with Alex, who's the new editor, so that was helpful.
Carrie had considered being a page editor, but decided on being a staff writer due to one big hurdle.
I think part of it was just the time commitment. What I've sort of learned throughout college, one of the biggest things I've learned in college is that I cannot do everything. And I didn't want to sign up for being editor and then, like, have to ditch out on people or not actually do a good job. And that just would have been not good for, like, I have 2 internships right now and classes, and I volunteer at my church and a whole bunch of other stuff, so I was like, I'd rather just be a staff writer, which may not be, as impressive of a title as editor, but at least I know I can, like, do a good job writing for sure. And there is also the thing that I don't feel like I'm really good at design, so I was like, words I can do, design not so much, so.
In the future, Carrie wants to pursue the journalism side of her writing, utilizing her skills in content management and blogging. Current press secretary Emily Ayers seemingly switched positions with Carrie. Emily was a staff writer for the Union Weekly last semester, and her story of joining the paper has a similar element to Carrie's.
So I transferred from Long Beach City College, right? And so we had, at the end of the year, we had this little, it's called a front of the class award ceremony. And so basically, like, in your journalism classes, your teacher kind of chooses who they think, I guess, did the best job or whatever. And so me and Silvana, we both got an award for that. And so at that ceremony, Katie Cortez was there. And so she kind of came up to us after, and she was like, we're trying to recruit writers. Like, we need people. When you guys come, you should do it. So it was very impromptu. Neither of us expected it. I didn't expect it, but I was super excited because here I was just going to be transferring in and already had a writing position, which to me was awesome.
Her journey to becoming press secretary was definitely helped by her work at the Union Weekly.
It was actually last semester for the Union Weekly. We did the whole thing on the candidates that were running, and we had an interview like the president and a VP, and ended up interviewing Marvin and Logan, who are now the president and VP. And so that's sort of how I met them, and then over the summer he reached out to me on Instagram and asked me if I would be interested in being the press secretary. Mind you, I had no idea what that was, what that entailed. I was like, oh my god, this is student government, like, I've never thought of being involved with that. And so I just, like, read the description, talked to him about it, and it actually seemed pretty interesting. It was all about helping to sort of bridge that connection between students and what ASI does, and doing that through either writing articles myself or making sure that media knows what's happening and going on. And so I really liked the idea of sort of being like the middle person, and I find that in my life a lot of times I like to be the person who helps to two different people kind of see what the other's saying, if that makes sense. Like, I like being the mediator a lot of times.
Emily felt confident as a journalist, but her work as press secretary has given her a look into how a company functions.
In my head, I was like, well, if anything, this will be experience. But at the same time, I didn't know, like, what experience that was really affording me. Because I knew I had, like, the writing stuff down. At least I felt like I had experience with that. And so I think the press secretary position has given me an idea of, like, corporate America. And so that's why I think it's been very, it's just been interesting, I think. So there's a lot of meetings, parliamentary rule, which is, you know, motion pass. Like, there's just all these different things. The constant emailing. Having your office hours, you're working with like administrators and executives and these like high, it's just a very different atmosphere. But I think in the same vein, that's what's going to teach me a lot, because you're not going to be sheltered forever. And so I think it gives me that experience of working with like actual adult people, you know what I mean, and working in an organization where there is sort of this like hierarchy, and there's certain ways you have to do things, and you have to attend meetings, and you have to respond to emails, and you have to be professional. So I think that the ASI Press Secretary position has really given me this like professional view of myself that I don't think I quite had before. Yeah, and so it's just kind of made me more confident, I think, in how I see myself and my abilities outside of just being a journalist. So I think that's helped me a lot, actually, to kind of broaden my horizons. Like, oh, I could try this, or I could be in PR. Or...
As press secretary, she does want to leave behind something good and memorable.
I think that this idea of transparency has been in the air for a long time now. And I think, if anything, I would want the people in ASI government and also on campus, or anybody who like reads the articles and stuff, just to feel like I helped work towards that, to kind of lift that veil of like, what is ASI? Who are these people? What are they doing for us? And I think that's sort of been my underlying goal in everything I'm doing, is to bring a realness and to bring the people to it, because there are 60 plus people that are working towards helping students. They don't have this like agenda. Do you know what I mean? So I think if anything, that would be the legacy I'd want to leave, is just this idea of transparency and honesty, and working towards that with everything I do. And it's been a really good experience, and like, I'm so thankful to the Union Weekly. I think into Cal State Long Beach in general, I think they have so many opportunities for students, and if you can get your foot in the door with one thing, I think it just like opens everything up, right? And it makes it a lot less scary when it comes to knowing I'm a senior about to graduate, having to go into the real world. I feel like my resume is so full of actual experience that's applicable. And so I think, if anything, I'm just really grateful, especially to the Union Weekly as a staff writer and now as a contributor. I think it's just great. So yeah, I'm just grateful. So yeah.
After graduating, Emily wants to go after freelance work, preferably with an element of travel. Next week, multimedia assistant Allison Meyer will be taking over the podcast to present a special episode. Be sure to stay after the credits for something fun.
Thanks for listening to the Union Weekly Insider. Special thanks to our podcast assistant, Allison Meyer, for additional editing and recording. You can find us at lbunion.com, in iTunes, or on your favorite podcast app. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat at Union Weekly. If you're on the CSULB campus, pick up an issue of the Union Weekly, or find us on issue.com. That's ISSUU.com. Oh, you can also find us on medium.com too.
Next time on the Union Weekly Insider.
From time to time, things happen, and we go talk to Danny, and he gives us answers because he's Danny the Wise.
Are you afraid of controversy?
No, I'm not afraid of controversy.
If I do something wrong, well, everyone here is gonna be in trouble, not just me.
I had so many years of U.S. history for no reason.
I do want to work with Nathan now, because I found out he was the one that did the Harambe.
That's a good... Oh, that
Yeah.
Harambe ad is so good.
So I found out he did that, so I kind of want to talk to him more if he's ever in the office. But yeah.
Pepe, listen, man. Pepe's a good man. He was just at the wrong place at the wrong time. Pepe's not friends with Donald Trump, okay? That's no friend of Pepe. Pepe doesn't deserve this to be, Pepe doesn't deserve this. At all. Pepe's a good man. Let Pepe be free. Free Pepe.